I'm calling to speak to Daniel St. Clair, the actor. If I'm not mistaken, that's Anthony Clair's name that he uses for the movies for his work.
Right. Right. Well, Daniel isn't here right now. Maybe I can get him to call you back.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to bother you. What?
Enemy is without a doubt one of the most fascinating films of the 21st century. Upon its initial wide release in 2014, it divided audiences and critics, some praising it as a modern masterpiece, and some stating that it was the worst film they had ever seen in their whole lives. Even 4 years after it was last shown in a cinema, it still promotes in-depth analytical essays and lengthy conversations. And is it really any surprise why? Now, I first watched Enemy 4 years ago, in fact, and I did do a review of it with Gary, and that was such a mess of a review, I think. It wasn't a total mess, but it was definitely very incohesive, and keep in mind, it was the very first time we'd seen that film. Fast forward 4 years later, specifically the 15th of August, where Sophie wanted to watch the film, because Sophie had never seen the film. I wanted to rewatch the film, so we thought, why not? Let's watch Enemy. So I put the Blu-ray in the Blu-ray player, and as soon as I hit play, it was like I was watching Enemy for the very first time all over again. I think it's safe to say that I was immediately immersed, and I was just transfixed by how beautifully bleak the cinematography was, and how director of photography Nicholas Bolduc managed to make the set in Toronto just so stunningly eerie. It's incredibly difficult to take your eyes off the screen watching Enemy. And what complements the cinematography beautifully is the score by Danny Bensi and Saundra Durains. Yes, it's not big, loud, bombastic, orchestral, dramatic. But what it is, it goes for more of the subtle approach. And within that, it translates perfectly exactly how the characters and the audience alike are meant to be feeling at the moments in time, which, for the most part, the emotions that you do get from the score are curiosity, intensity, and confusion. Along with the technical aspects, what makes Enemy such a treat to watch is the acting. Now, Enemy has a relatively small cast with 4 primary characters and 3 actors playing them. So this gives the actors plenty of opportunity for them to be on top of the game and then to shine. And boy oh boy, do they shine. And definitely the standouts are Sarah Gadon and Jake Gyllenhaal. I'll first talk about Sarah Gadon before I get to Jake Gyllenhaal. And well, Gadon, she plays Helen, Anthony's wife, who was 6 months pregnant. And now, a role like this, you know, it's important to the plot, yes, but it doesn't really, like, on paper, it's not really a role you would think that's going to be a big standout or like anything too notable. And that's where Sarah Gadon takes control of this character. Now, Sarah Gadon, she's an actress that is able to act purely through her eyes. And through that technique of hers, she manages to tell 100 different types of emotions with extremely little expression or any words at all. A shining example of her acting ability is when Helen visits Adam's workplace. Just the sheer amount of emotion Sarah Gadon is able to tell with no words and extremely little face movement, just simply through her eyes, you can tell like how heartbreaking this moment is for her. And when she does say something, it's just so heart-wrenching. Even though they're very simple lines of dialogue, Gadden truly does give a wonderful performance. The perfect companion piece to Jake Gyllenhaal, which manages to go leaps and bounds over anything it was really meant to be. And quite frankly, it's just as important as Gyllenhaal's role himself. Now, with that being said, on to the main attraction, as we'll say. Jake Gyllenhaal. Wow. Where to begin with Jake Gyllenhaal in this film? Gyllenhaal plays two characters. The first is Adam Bell, who is a history teacher who lives in a pretty rundown apartment. There's barely anything there. It's basically only a bed and a laptop. He has a girlfriend played by Melanie Laurent, which relationship seems to just be purely sexual and nothing really else. He's clearly not happy with himself, and he's just bleh in his life, really. And the other character that Jake Gyllenhaal plays is Anthony Clare, an actor who lives in a high-end apartment, well-dressed, carries him really confidently, has really nice stylized hair. He's just, he's living the life. He's got a wife, Helen, who's pregnant, and everything seems good, but even Anthony has his own personal demons within himself. Ian Freer from Empire magazine stated that Jake Gyllenhaal gives two spellbinding performances, and I wholeheartedly agree. Gyllenhaal without a doubt gives a tour de force performance that is unlike any other you would see in film. He is so good in these two performances that when they're in the same shot, in the same scene, you totally believe that these are two different people. And I don't just mean two different characters. I mean, you are so immersed in Gyllenhaal's performance that you are of the mind that these are two completely different actors playing these two different roles. As Adam, Gyllenhaal is restless, uncomfortable in himself, shy, subdued. And as Anthony, he's got so much confidence and he just walks with so much great posture. And when these two are in the same room, you have no idea what's about to happen. It's so unpredictable. You think anything could happen and you are on the edge of your seat when these two simply walk in the same room. And a lot of that credit has to go to Gyllenhaal and the way he's managed to play these two. The doppelganger trope is nothing new in fiction. It's been done multiple times. Examples include William Wilson by Edgar Allan Poe, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain, and of course The Double by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Well, what makes Enemy stand out from the rest, it's that it's not just a man finds his doppelganger, hijinks ensue. No, it's a lot more than that, actually. It evolves into an existential battle of loyalty and honesty that will grip you on the edge of your seat. And that's a film with little to no action in it. Director Denis Villeneuve and screenwriter Javier Goulin did a masterful job at bringing a story to the big screen that not only challenged the audience's mentality, but also prompted conversations amongst people that no other doppelganger film has ever done before. Overall, Enemy is a bleak film laced with dread and curiosity, and on first viewing, it can most certainly leave the audience with more questions than answers. But on repeat viewings, the message and the meaning definitely becomes a lot more obvious. It boasts gorgeous cinematography, a memorable score, phenomenal acting, and an unforgettable atmosphere. And within time, I do believe negativity towards the film will decrease and people will look at it as a true classic. Not in a dissimilar way to how in 1968 critics panned 2001: A Space Odyssey. And now 50 years later, we look back at 2001 as one of the greatest cinematic achievements. Enemy will always have its critics, as all films that are heavy in metaphor do. But one thing's for certain, Enemy is an experience that lasts much longer than the 91-minute runtime. And it's a film that I will continue to think about.
Hello? Who is this?
Oh, he doesn't know me. No. Okay, I'll call back later.